I think the Business Model Innovator Tool is important because there's no one-fits-all business model for different energy islands. Energy islands are not alike, and if one wants to develop a business model for such an energy island, one needs to pay attention to the very specific conditions in that energy island. For instance, regulation across energy islands differ a lot, and the Business Model Innovator Tool facilitates to consider those specifics and then to tailor very specific business models for the different energy islands.
We initially begin with looking into how we can support building tools which are built around multi-vector system in the project, and how can we support those tools to enter market, and different stakeholders or relevant stakeholders can develop a business model around it. So one of the initial idea was to use this pattern-based approach, which was proposed by Moritz. And also while doing the literature review, you can say it, that we found out that there are many companies which are already there in the energy domain, which want to remain in the market, and without bringing in business model transformation, they cannot really be competitive in the market anymore, with a lot of distributed generation coming in and a lot of market reformation going on. So definitely there was a gap which was needed by existing players in order to bring an innovation to their existing business model, and that's where this idea came, to develop a business model innovator tool.
Well, we hope to develop 25 business model patterns for energy islands, and that should serve as a framework for energy islands to really find their most suited business model for their very local context. And I think that's where we also can bring in a bit of innovation in that business model pattern approach to really provide a bit more guidance in how to select the really most suited business model pattern for the particular actor. So I hope we can help them adjusting these business models to the local policy context, but also to the customer acceptance, particular for that site.
I think I would like to support what Merla just said, that the E-LAND business model patterns specifically will also focus on the engagement of local communities and customer acceptance. And I think that is eventually something unique. So also existing business model patterns do that to some extent, but especially in VP2 in the E-LAND project, there's a lot of work that looks into building social acceptance and community engagement. And I think it's quite unique that the business model patterns in E-LAND are building on that. So that is one additional thing that I think is important. And the other thing is we have this multi-energy vector logic in E-LAND. And this is also a very important element of E-LAND to optimize across energy vectors. And the existing business model patterns, or the existing business models we have, are not yet fully suitable to support that. And so the E-LAND business model patterns pay especially attention also to this cross energy vector optimization, which obviously is a very important task if you want to achieve carbon neutrality of energy islands.
Since they're different actors, and also actors taking active roles since they're being engaged, and in a way all of these actors have to have a functioning business model for them too. Even if you're just a regular prosumer providing a bit of extra solar power to the system, it also has to be a functioning business model for him actually.
That's also exciting that we are able to develop and test the business model patterns alongside the pilot sites and for business models there. So basically the energy island business models in E-LAND are around a carbon neutral university campus, and one needs to have specific business model patterns or specific business model setup for such a carbon neutral university campus. Then we have in Norway a green port, which obviously can eventually use some of the business model patterns that also might be useful for a university, but might also require different patterns or different combinations of patterns. And in Spain, those business model patterns shall support energy optimization in small and medium-sized factories.
One thing which I find unique is that, there are very limited resources available for relevant actors in the energy domain to find such kind of resources, which are business model patterns, and how to a framework to combine different business model patterns. And business model patterns are you can say it like building blocks for a complete business model. So there is a need of lot of resources for players in the energy sides, and of course for energy communities, on how they can build economically viable business models. So this is something which our tool brings a new thing into the market. Of course, this is nothing which is completely new. There are similar examples which are present in other domains, but what we are saying here is that this is something new for energy domain, and specifically to support the local energy systems.
In terms of what is different in the business model innovation approach in E-LAND, we developed a matrix with 2 dimensions. And one dimension is business model innovation that focuses mainly on one energy vector. And there are many interesting examples we draw on. And then there's another dimension that looks at business model innovation across energy vectors. And again, there one finds interesting business models that we can learn from. And then we combine this perspective with the single energy vector and the multiple energy vector. And then we look at business models that focus, let's say, mostly on technology. And in a way, there are interesting challenges related to the development of those business models too, but most likely we would say they can be set up fairly easy in a way. So it's a technology, and most of the time you want to sell that, or you think of some kind of a service-based business model. So that is one dimension. But then there's the other dimension that looks into community engagement or community change, in a way, behavioral change, in addition to such technology. And this is a bit more challenging. And if we combine those two different dimensions, we have four areas which we look at, and the business model innovation in E-LAND is in the fourth area. So it is across energy vector optimization and the change of behavior and the whole community. And I think in this particular field, there are not so many business model innovations that we see there, although we can learn from all the other business model innovations here. But we really aim to move to that fourth field, and I think here it is important what Merla and Sanket already just said, that we have a profound tool to develop good and working and also in a way profitable business models for that particular field.
Just to highlight the relevance with Moritz just said, because traditionally in the energy sector, electricity and also heat is often generated really far away from the customer and really transmitted and distributed over long distances and using very centralized generation plants. But what the E-LAND approach now really has to really builds on the local infrastructure and the local capacities, but also the power of the people in terms of adjusting their consumption patterns to how electricity or heat is produced. So it really has a fundamentally different logic, and that really has to be taken up by the business model approach, of course. So there's a lot of new thinking in that sense, how we produce and use energy.